In this video, I'm going to be going over how you can easily do a cut and buff job, polish up your paint job yourself at home. You can do it even in a dirty garage if you want to. Prefer it not being too dirty, but yeah, you can do it yourself, no problem. I've done a video on this in the past, probably 3 or 4 years ago, on my other channel. That channel no longer does automotive stuff. That's all about kind of farming. And so I created this channel to do just automotive stuff. Now, I will say before I get into this that there's a ton of different ways you can do this. Some ways are probably less right than others or more right than others. But at the end of the day, if it comes out good and you're happy with it, then that's fine. Now, the only reason I bring that up is because I've almost never had hardly any negative comments in any of my videos. And that one, man, people got so bent out of shape. They would try saying I was using the wrong sandpaper or I didn't know what I was talking about with the compound I was using or whatever. But it ended up being my second or third most successful video I've ever made, even though people were just really mean, really. I mean, no other way to really say it other than just mean. So let me just start by saying I'm going to do this a way that I know works really well. And I'll show you the results, and if you like it, follow along. So we're going to be doing it on what I think is a 1984 Chevy, is it a K10, I think? It's the 4-wheel drive, 8-foot bed. It's a really nice truck. Let me just turn the camera around. I'll show you a bit more about it. So this is my father's truck. This is not mine. And he just painted it about a month ago, maybe less. And the paint job, my father, he's awesome when it comes to building things, you know, fixing stuff, whatever. Like he changed the cab on this truck. He put a new side bed on it, all kinds of stuff. And he's awesome at everything he does, except when it comes to the paint, like he'll admit he's not the best painter, but it's not bad. We're gonna make it look just that much better. So you can see the bed isn't that bad. There's a couple little runs here and there. The bodywork's not flawless. He wasn't trying to make it flawless. Just doing the best he could. But here you can really see the orange peel. It's kind of heavy on this door. It's not that bad everywhere. So all in all, it didn't come out that bad. But I am going to be taking it to the next level. And it's going to be a little bit challenging because he's already put a lot of the chrome and stuff back on. I'm just going to be masking that stuff off, staying a little bit away from it, and just not worrying about making it perfect. I'm not worrying about making this entire job perfect, honestly. I just want to make it look a whole lot better than it does. Fresh clear coat can have kind of a gummy look to it. And what I'm going to do is going to get rid of that. I'm going to get rid of just about all the orange peel. Hopefully he put enough clear coat on it that I can actually do that. I'll turn the truck around when I do this side so I have a little bit more room. Just get a look at what's under the hood here. Can't see in here all that well, but that is a crate engine 454. So we have all these materials. Now, these cutting compounds, some of them might be 5 years old, maybe even older, especially the heavy cut one. I probably won't even need that. And depending on the condition of it, like there's only like this much or so left in it. And I'm not sure how good it still is. I may skip that, but I'm hoping to use it. So we'll go with that first. That will be used with a wool pad on the rotary sander. Then we will go to our medium cut. Everything else will be foam after that. So we'll have the medium cut, the swirl remover, and the show car glaze. I may or may not do that step. I might just leave that to him to do that. But we have this dual action polisher. It's DA. I don't think he's ever used it. We have a new pad for it so that we can use these foam pads. So we have a compound cutting pad, a polishing pad, and a finishing pad. Plenty of white towels, all kinds of sandpapers. So I have these sanding blocks. My father and I were down in Carlisle a few months back, and we pick some of these up. I'm usually pretty hesitant of stuff like this because you don't really know what the paper really is. But I talked to the guy for quite a while. He seemed like he made these himself, and it seemed like he only used pretty high quality sandpaper. And being that it's the 1000 grit, probably be okay. I'm gonna probably cut those in half and use them that way as blocks. Some various other little blocks I can use. And we've got some 1500 that I'm gonna do with the machine. I'll probably actually use the DA polisher. And then 3000 grit. You don't have to use a 3000 grit, but I highly recommend it. It's gonna make the compound and cut and buffing so much better. So we have all kinds of stuff to start with here. You gotta have a spray bottle. There's a little bit of soap in there. Got a clean bucket of water. There's also a little bit of soap in there. The soap just helps the sandpaper kind of glide a little bit better. Let's get started. I've got the camera up really close so you can really see what I'm doing. I want you to be able to see how this changes over time. I'm probably gonna keep the camera right there for the whole job. My plan is to attack the truck one panel at a time. And so I'll do this whole bedside all the way to the finish. Not the actual show car glaze, but every step up till then. Then I'll move on and do another panel. In this video, I'll probably cover just this panel. And then when the truck's completely done, I'll show you the rest. After you've seen this for a little while, you don't need to see every panel. It's gonna get really boring. First step is to make sure that it's nice and clean. So it's not really dirty because this truck's never been on the road since it was painted, but it does have a lot of overspray and just dust on it. So you want to get all that off. You don't want to be sanding anything into your paint. So like I said, this is really clean already. I'm just getting a fine dust off of it. It's just lightly soapy water. It's probably just a few drops of probably this Dawn dish detergent in here. My father actually prepped this for me while I was away today. So it's nice to come out to the garage. I already have my soapy water all ready to go, a bucket all ready to go. I think he was excited to see this get done. So that will be good enough. This towel I will set aside because it has some fine powder in it. I will not be using this towel as I'm cutting because I don't want to have any of the dust get wiped back in. So this I will keep separately. We'll use this again on the rest of the truck, but from here on out, we'll only be using a clean rag. Just want to mask off this chrome here. Like I said, ideally you wouldn't have this already on, but it's on, so we just have to make sure we protect it. You don't have to do an excellent masking job because I'm not going to be getting like super close anyways. I just want to make sure the chrome is protected so I'm not hitting it with the buffer or sanding into it or anything like that. I'll probably be staying a good 1/4 inch away from this when I'm sanding. Just went ahead and moved the camera a little bit because I want to show you something here. There's a run right here. It's not horrible. This one isn't going to be hard to sand out, but just to be protective, what I like to do when I see something like that is I'll sometimes run a little masking tape just on each side of it. Got those LED lights really blazing, so it's kind of hard to see. But yeah, I think that's about it for that. And what I'm using that masking tape for is so that as I'm sanding off that run, I'm not sanding all over around it and going through the clear coat while you're still trying to sand that little bit off. This just helps a little bit. I thought there were more runs on this panel, but I'm not seeing them. So that'll be my first test to see how that 1000 grit sandpaper I have works. Then once I have that sanded out, I'll peel this tape off and I'll sand the whole thing. You can't see in the video, but I have that bucket of water is right below me, and I'm gonna be constantly dunking my paper in that bucket of water to keep the paper clean. We're just gonna go ahead and get started. Now, I'll be sanding all of it in this direction, just like this, on the whole panel for this 1000 grit. You can see it is taking that run off. I don't know if you can see it, but I can. It's coming off pretty easy. Got my clean rag. So I'm just trying to get it flat. I'm not trying to make it absolutely gone in this first pass, but I want to make it completely flat. When I've come across heavier runs than that, I've actually taken a razor blade and you can actually scrape. You don't actually want to try to dig in with the razor blade. You actually use it as a scraper and you can scrape the run off. This one isn't going to be bad enough to need that. You can see I'm actually sanding my masking tape away a little bit. And that run is flat enough, at least for this step. So we'll just get rid of this masking tape, which was kind of causing a mess anyways. Ooh. So you can probably see that in the camera. Got kind of a flat area. Still a little bit of a heavy spot right there. I'm not sure how well you can actually see that in the camera, but so another thing that's really important, and sometimes guys will actually, any sharp edge, you can mask that off to protect it because the clear coat's gonna be thinner on a sharp edge than it is anywhere else. And it's also gonna be easier to sand through just because it's an edge. So what I'm doing, even though I didn't sand, I'm not masking that off, I am intentionally staying away from it and just being careful to not go down too low onto that edge. But it can be a good idea to mask it off just to be sure that you're not going to hit that. It's okay to hit it a little bit. You just don't want to hit it a lot. I'm actually doing here is I'm just trying to get that glue off from the tape. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Good enough for this round. Like I said, I don't know how much clear coat there really is on this. And so I will not be sanding everything off. Basically want to get it flat if I can without sand through. Again, on this, you want to be careful. You don't spend too much time on this rounded edge because you will take the paint right off or the clear coat off. If I didn't mention it before, this is a two-step. This is base coat, clear coat. So far, this paper seems to be cutting pretty good. good idea to keep your rag handy so you can see how you're doing. It's a little bit lumpy up here too, like the body work on this isn't perfect. So I really can't sand all that great on this because I will go through all those lumps and make a mess, and I don't want to do that. So normally I would bring this all the way across, then I'd come back and I'd start doing this whole section. But for the camera, I'm going to do this section so you can really see what it looks like. If I'm talking too much, you can just tell me in the comments as nicely as you can to shut up. A lot of people are gonna be asking, why don't I just go right to a machine to start with? And you could, I like to really get in there by hand for at least one pass, so I really know what I'm working with. But you could step up and just go to a machine. I wouldn't use 1,000 grit with a machine, but you could use 1,500. But I've had good results doing it this way. There's a lot of body shops. If you've only ever worked at a body shop, I wouldn't say that that's like a collision repair shop. Don't take that as gospel, the way they do things. It's probably good enough, but what I'm showing is the way you would typically do like a really nice, sort of a show paint job. Even though this is not a show paint job, but that's the process I'm showing you. So don't take one way that you've been taught to do it as the only way. Just like I said, there's ways you can do it differently than when I'm doing it that will be fine too. Again here, I'm trying to stay off of that lip here. I just want to make sure I get right down close to it and not really sand over it. Make sure you use lots of water. You'll know if it starts drying out, your pad will start sticking. Let's see what we got. Give that a second to dry, and then you'll see it a little bit better in the camera, I think. What I want you to see is how the orange peel is mostly gone. There's still some right here, but there's also a little bit of body work here, so I don't want to get in there too much. And what you'll see is like shiny spots here and there. If you knew for sure you had plenty of clear coat on this, the goal would be to get rid of all those little shiny spots so it's all flat. Then you know you have a perfectly smooth surface. I'm not going to go that far on this truck for a few reasons. One, the truck doesn't need to be that good. Two, I don't know how much clear coat's really on here. And three, there's a little bit of body work and some waves and stuff that I don't want to be sanding through spots. So I'm going to put in my AirPods, I'm going to listen to my Audible book, and I am going to get going and sand this whole side down to like that, and then we'll move on to the next step. So you can see I got pretty far with that 1,000 grit. Got this whole top section done. You can see it's pretty good. Like I didn't get it perfectly smooth because it's just the body and the paint just isn't quite good enough, I don't think, to take it down that far. But at this point, I am gonna do a test. This is a lot of sanding. This is a big truck. A lot of sanding by hand. I don't think that 1000 grit I have is really that great. I mean, it's cutting pretty good, but it's taken me a long time to do this. So I'm gonna try the auto body method. 1500 grit on this rotary DA. I've got a foam pad on here, and we're gonna give that a shot. So I have this section here. That's about as good as I'm probably gonna try to get it with 1000 grit by hand. So I'm gonna do a section right next to it, just as a test to see, can I get it as good as that with 1500 on the machine versus 1000 grit by hand. Because if it's good enough, that's what we're gonna run with, because I don't wanna die out here trying to finish this job. Normally I have a lot less orange peel than this on cars that I do, and maybe better sandpaper. Normally it goes a lot quicker than this, or maybe I'm just getting old, I don't know, but let's give this a shot. So I'm gonna keep this nice and wet. I'm gonna start off on a fairly slow speed, just to get a feel for the machine, because I don't know how this thing works. That seemed to cut really well, judging by the slurry that it made. To get a really good feel for how good it cut, just gotta dry it off. You can also use like a squeegee, and that will help let you know just how good of a job it did cutting. But I have a feeling this is gonna be maybe even better than my hand sanding of the 1000 grit. And if it is good enough, that would be fantastic, because that was way faster than by hand. So let's let that dry and we'll see what we got. I think it needs a little bit more sanding, but pretty happy with that so far, I think. So I do believe that's going to be good enough. Good enough for the project we're working on. It's a little bit shinier because it's a finer grit. So I was going to go over the whole thing anyways with that 1500 when I was done with the 1000 grit. But at this point, I'm going to just do the whole thing now in the 1500. I'll do all the stuff I haven't touched yet with the 1000. And then go over all the stuff I already hit with the 1000. That's just a damp area. It's not a spot I missed. So I can spend a little bit more time than I did when I just worked on the 1500 just now in the video. And get a little bit better job, a little bit flatter. What I like about block sanding is you can get a really flat, smooth surface. And the way that you're cutting across one way and then going back the other way. Like I ended up going in both directions on this. I know I told you I was gonna go one direction, but I ended up going one direction on the whole surface and then the other direction on the whole surface. And what you're really doing there is you're making a nice, flat, smooth surface. Better than I think the DA or the machine does. But on this truck, and how big it is, and we're not trying to make an absolute show truck out of it, I think the 1500 is going to be the way to go with the machine. I'll hand sand areas where I think I need to hand sand, but otherwise I'm going to run with that 1500 on the machine and save hours worth of time. So check back in a second. Well, that's the hard step right there. Everything right now is down to 1500 on the bedside. You can see I haven't touched the rest of the truck. Next up, we're gonna jump right to 3000 grit. Not just any 3000 grit. The Trizac foam pad. This stuff is amazing. It's like over $10 a sheet, I think. But it really works so good. Typically, you would think that if you're gonna go from 1500, you'd have to go like 2000 or 2500 before you stepped up to that 3000 grit. But that Trizac, you really don't have to. And the other reason for that is also because the cutting compound I'm going to be using, the heavy cut, can actually handle up to like 1500 grit scratches. And we're not going to have that when we get done with that 3000 grit. So one thing you're going to notice is that after the 3000 grit, this will actually start to get a little bit shiny again, just from that. Another thing I want to point out real quick, see how this line is still shiny? That's just showing that I stayed away from that for the most part. I mean, I might have hit it here and there, but for the most part, I didn't touch that line because you'll cut right through that if you do. So the 3000 grit's gonna go much faster. Let's get that going and start making this shine again. This 3000 grit paper is amazing. So what we're gonna do, just keep everything nice and wet as we go. I'm just gonna sand the whole side of this truck down with this. Quality sandpaper is worth spending the money on, trust me. Don't waste your money on cheap sandpaper. Just because it seems really expensive doesn't mean that you shouldn't be using it or that's not worth it. It is worth it. Let's get going. I would normally just sand this whole thing out, but because I'm making a video, I wanted you to be able to see the difference. And I'm kind of curious what the difference looks like too. Myself, it's been a little while since I've done a cut and buff job. But the 3000 grit always impresses me because it just makes such a big difference. Like it starts to look almost polished after 3000 grit. So that was my wet rag. I have two rags going. I have a pretty damp wet one that I started with. And then I've got a mostly dry one that I follow it up with. So as that dries, you should be able to see a big difference between this section of the bed and the section I haven't done yet. I can already see a big difference from here. So that's looking absolutely fantastic. We're gonna go with that. We're just gonna sand the rest of it out. Gonna continue listening to my book on Audible. And when I'm done with the 3000 grit, we'll move on to the next step. This is the part where it should get really fun. You're gonna start buffing this out. I'm gonna be using some a wool pad. Now, when I say should be fun, well, this compound is so old that I dropped it and it broke open. Like all the plastic is just like completely garbage. But we're gonna try to use it anyways because I really wanted to use this, and I'll buy more tomorrow to do the rest of the truck. So I'm just, instead of using a squeeze top, I'm just gonna dump it out of the hole. See how this goes. So I'm just gonna put some compound on here. It's quite a bit of compound. Now this rotary buffer is kind of a pain because it starts off really slow and then it starts spinning. That's kind of a good thing and kind of a bad thing at the same time. I already misted the pad before I got started here. So the problem is that sometimes it will sling compound like everywhere, which is not what I want it to do. So I've got it on a pretty low setting right now. I'm gonna start down low, down here, kind of work it in. Takes a long time to get going. So you can see why I want to use that. I'm not sure what you see in the camera. Might be hard to see, but it is an incredible shine. Put a little bit more compound on here. Way too much compound on there. I'll start up here. I'm just gonna finish up buffing this, and then we'll take the camera and we'll show you what the first heavy cut looks like. That first pass of compound always amazes me. Look at how good that looks already. You can see the reflection of everything on the floor so much better. There's virtually no orange peel. I mean, there's probably some, but yeah, it looks so good. So now we are gonna go with the medium cut because that was the heavy cut. The heavy cut always, like I said, it just surprises me. It looks even better over here where it's kind of dark. So looks pretty good to me. So that was with the wool pad, the heavy cut. Now we are going to move on to a foam pad, and we're going to go with a medium cut and just kind of polish it up a little bit. So we're going to go with this medium cut cleaner. This is, again, pretty old. I think tomorrow I'm going to go buy all new stuff. I need it. So I'm just going to put a couple dabs on here. So like even the top on this, I just went to open it and it busted off. So all these old plastics are not holding up too good. We'll see how this does. Just kind of smear it around a little bit. Hopefully we don't get too much spatter. That's the one issue I have with the wool, is that it always slings stuff everywhere. Just makes a mess. But it works so good. So let's see what happens. Just give that a little wipe down and see how we're doing. So by this stage, I usually have like 4 or 5 different towels going, like the cleanest to the dirtiest, and I start wiping down with the dirtiest, and then I move on to the cleanest. That's looking fantastic. All right, let me just finish up this step while I listen to my audiobook, and then we'll move on. Medium step is done. So we now have the heavy cut and the medium cut done. And I am very happy. Like, you can see the reflection of all the tools in it, really nice and clean. Lots of metallic, so it's kind of hard to show, but all in all, I think we're looking pretty good. Not bad. So we got just one more step we're going to do today, and that is going to be the swirl remover. Probably not even going to bother showing that step because it's the same as the other 2 steps you already saw. Well, the last step. It's a foam one. It's not the wool, but yeah, I'm liking it. It's looking good. So let's get that step done. I'll get the masking tape off, and we'll see what we got. Just to recap, we did 2 steps of sanding. Well, technically 3, because I did 1,000 grit by hand for a while, but ended up giving up on that and just doing the 1,500 by the machine, then 3,000 by the machine, and then 3 steps of actual buffing. 1 with wool pad and 2 with foam. And I'm just curious what you think, if you can see it. So this is stuff I have not touched. Unfortunately, it looks really good in this angle. Better than it really should. And here's what's done. To me, there's a massive difference, all right? There's like almost no orange peel. Reflection looks great. Like, look at that bucket. It's so crisp, so clear. Reflection is tremendous. Looks really, really good. So I still have this stuff to do. So let's see here. So see the bucket there. Like, nothing in this reflection is really that crisp. It's there, but it's not like sharp. Here, it's sharp. Nice and clean, clear. Big difference. Hard to show on camera, but it's there. So we got that one bedside done. I got the rest of the truck to do. And I think I'll give you an update when the truck is done. And for now, I might just leave you with this. See what you think. Give me your thoughts in the comments. Any of the products that you watched me use that you might be interested in, I'll try to put those in the description of the video so you can check those out. If you're not subscribed already, consider subscribing, and see you soon. Thanks.